No matter who you are or where you go, heading outside is always worth it. Welcome to Humans Outside, where we're using the Humans Outside 365 Challenge to build a life around spending time in nature while learning from fascinating outdoor-minded guests. I'm Amy Bouchatz. I've let curiosity be my guide as a journalist for 18 years. But life, including my husband's war injuries, had burnt us out. So we moved sight unseen to Alaska to see if a change of scenery and new focus on outdoors was just the shift we needed. Since September 2017, I've spent at least 20 consecutive minutes outside every single day, no matter what, to explore how nature can change my life. Ready to hear from experts and outdoor lovers who make heading into nature just a part of who they are while we work to do the same? Let's go! Even if you know next to nothing about Alaska, you've probably still heard of the annual Iditarod sled dog race, where teams of mushers travel with their dogs hundreds of miles across frozen Alaska, racing to the remote town of Nome. The race kicks off the first weekend of March with a festival known as Fur Rendezvous, or Furandi. Mushing is more than a sport, it's a lifestyle, and it puts those racing it into extremely isolated, middle-of-nowhere survival situations as they make their way from Willow to Nome. So I wanted to know what that's like and how it connects the musher to nature. And to learn that, I brought on the podcast Kristy and Anna Berington, identical twin Iditarod racers. If you're listening to this in early March when I'm releasing it, Kristy and Anna are both out there or have just finished racing their individual dog teams as you're hearing this. And now you can hear our conversation from 2021 for a little bit of insight into what makes dog racing special, as well as the nuts and bolts of how it works. Kristy and Anna, welcome to Humans Outside.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Hi.
So we talked a little bit before we started about the fact that you guys sound identical in addition to being identical. So listeners, you are hearing two separate people, not the same person, weirdly talking to themselves. So that's something we've not had on this podcast before. I'm really excited. But we start all of these episodes just imagining ourselves in our listeners' favorite outdoor space as if we were hanging out with you guys, having a conversation outside somewhere instead of communicating over the phone or however we're recording this podcast. So where are we with you today?
As far as favorite outdoor place, I would kind of say it's just on the back of the runners with the dogs. So it doesn't matter where we're going. It's just to be in that spot overlooking them and us traveling together. That is just one of my favorite places to be. And I agree with that. And I enjoy that spot to be someplace where I can physically exert myself so I feel even bigger part of the team and our goal of traveling. So it'd be going up a mountain somewhere, I guess.
Yeah, great. So those are adjacent to my favorite things too. So I love to hear from my guests. How did you guys become people who like to go outside? What's your story? How'd you become outdoor folks?
We grew up in northern Wisconsin on a very small farm in a very small town. And our mom was great about letting us go do things. And later in life, she was like, I feel like I was a terrible mother. She's like, I let you guys do things I never should have let 4 and 5-year-olds go do. She said, but I had this comfort of, if Kristy falls in the river, Anna will go get help. So she was really great about, and our dad too, of encouraging and allowing us to just be outside. And it was a safe place to be outside. We lived on 40 acres and we had animals. So I think animals kept us going outside. We had chores to do every morning and every night. As soon as we could carry a dish to feed the cows or go pick eggs or anything, we were outside with the animals. So I think that connection with animals really kept us going outside. And that's why we do what we do today. We just absolutely adore the dogs and love doing things for them and with them. It's a lifestyle. Yeah, northern Wisconsin. Yeah. I mean, when we say northern Wisconsin, it's like the most northern part of Wisconsin. You'll fall in Lake Superior if you go any further north. So it was just a very inviting wilderness place. Tons of the Chequamegon National Forest and just a very small town. It's like you just walk in the woods and just go and be in the woods and that kind of thing. And we love all of the seasons. Obviously we love winter, but just to get outside and be outside all the time that's where home is the outdoors.
It's well, first of all, I'm sort of chuckling like how to make sure kids are safe. Produce your very own tag team.
Yeah. That's why moose have twins, don't they? So one of them can get eaten. Expendable.
Yeah. Let's not use that strategy for you guys, please. But sure, we could say that. I have an 8-year-old and an 11-year-old, and so not twins, obviously. I mean, I guess they watch out for each other. It's more like fighting. Is that something? Is that a problem when you're an identical twin, that you're at each other's throats?
No, I don't think so. I think we're really close, and I'm not going to deny like, oh, we never fight. It's a perfect relationship. When you're with somebody as much as we are and know somebody as deeply as you do, there's bound to be spats here and there. So yeah, we do get in disagreements, but it's not horrid. Yeah. It never turns into a fist fight. No.
Yeah. So Anna would not leave Kristy in the ditch on purpose. Sometimes I think my boys might do that. Okay, so there's like a lot of misconceptions and mythology and sort of in its own way surrounding mushing and dog racing, especially for people who don't live somewhere where it's a common sport, which really, I mean, is most of the world, right? So can you just start by talking to us about this, what the sport is itself, just to describe what is dog racing?
Dog racing and mushing is, you have one person, 90% races, it's one person that is the dog driver, the musher. They have a sled that's pulled by a team of huskies. The huskies we use are mixed breeds, and we are traveling a set course that has checkpoints along the way to get to the finish line. So that one musher, that one dog driver is responsible for their team. It's not a team sport with human beings. It's a team sport with dogs, right? There's no pit crew. There's no relaying. It's one musher and one dog team working together to get to a specific destination.
And you're on a sled specifically designed for this purpose. And your team is harnessed to ropes pulling the sled, and your job as the musher is to steer essentially and take care of the dogs. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And the amount of training that goes, you can't just show up to a race and be like, okay, let's do this. The amount of training that goes with it is it just totally engulfs your life. And, yeah, it's definitely, it changes your life. You can't just do it half-heartedly.
Right. Well, I think people don't really think through that part, like when you are racing dogs, you own the dogs. So the dogs are there all the time. This is not just when it's in the wintertime, here are the dogs, here we go. Right. These are your teammates who are literally in your yard all year round. And then that means you are invested in them, and they in their way are invested in you, and you're caring for them, and just on and on and on.
Right. They're not like a snow machine that you throw a cover on in April and be like, see you when the snow flies. They're living things, and they need us, and we need them. They're a huge part of our lives. And I would feel lost if I didn't have a dog, let alone 50.
So how many dogs are in your yard, in your kennel?
Right now in our yard, we have 53 dogs.
And you race 10 to 12 at a time, right? That's the team.
For Iditarod, we can have 14 on the line at a time. And when you start a race, that's what you get. With the distance racing we do, there's no like, oh, just switch that one later. You get that number that you start with. So all races that we participate in are 10 to 14 dogs, with the exception of the one race that we did together called the Denali Doubles. It was 2 mushers with 1 dog team, and you could have as many dogs as you wanted. We took 20.
And wait, the 2 dogs. So when you do a 2-person race like that, double, you're both on the same sled?
Right. And then to haul enough supplies, we actually tethered 2 sleds together like a train and then had the 20 dogs pulling that. So there's different ways you can do it. We could do 1 sled, but we had 2 sleds tied together with 20 dogs pulling us.
Cool. All right. So, okay. So, let's then also get out of the way this idea that mushing is somehow cruel to dogs. I know that's a common misconception or sort of rumor. Let's talk about that before anything else. Is that true? I mean, you obviously don't think it's true, but what do you think about that concept?
I think that the people who have negative opinions of mushing are the ones that don't understand it or are getting their information from bad places and that kind of thing. That anybody who questions it is like, go to a kennel and see the relationship with the dogs, see that this is what they love to do. And they're not forcing them to do it in any way. They are trained athletes. We're not showing up to a race with a not conditioned dog team. They eat better than we do. And it's just like with different people, like different things. Some people would never want to live in Alaska in a small cabin with a bunch of dogs and be outside upwards of 20 hours a day. Some people they would hate it, but we love it. I would never want to live in Florida. There's nothing wrong with Florida. I just wouldn't want to live there. I don't like the heat. I don't like that humidity. I don't like that many people and stuff like that. So our dogs are designed for this. They are what they are raised and bred for. So it's just, they love it. And there's no denying that.
I like think of the times I've been to dog races too. I just feel like when you see like firsthand see the teams getting ready to race, like you cannot deny like this dog is into this big time.
Right. It's like a Labrador likes to chase the ball. You don't throw a ball and any lab you meet's not gonna be like, fine, I'll go get it. They bring it back and throw it again. So that's what these dogs love. That's what they get joy out of.
Yeah. Or if you have a dog that does, I mean, that's a great analogy. If you have a dog that does not want to chase the ball, that dog is not going to chase the ball. Like he's going to sit there. My dog does this. So I have some experience. She's like, I will throw this ball and she will sit there and look at me like, please, are you freaking kidding me right now?
Right.
Go get your own ball.
Our sled dogs don't play fetch. We take them on free walks and then I'll pick up a stick and throw it. They run towards it and be like, okay, that was cool. And that was it. No one's going to bring it back to me.
Right. But to that end, like if you put a dog that you expected to pull you on a line, if that dog does not want to do that, it ain't happening. Like dogs you cannot make the dog pull the sled. Like that's just all there is to it. Like, I mean, I guess you could drag it along, but that's not what's happening here, right? This is a full participation or it doesn't work out.
Yeah, exactly. They're that husky, even though our dogs are mixed breeds, that husky that is a huge piece of their lineage, that desire to want to pull and to travel and be in Arctic conditions, that's there. Just like Kristy had said, a Labrador wants to fetch things, a Collie wants to control and herd things. There's that innate desire that you don't even have to nurture. It's there. So I think they're relatively easy to train as far as they want to do it.
Yeah. So you raised 2 things that I want to talk about really fast about the dogs. One, it's mixed breed. When people in the lower 48 think of, or outside Alaska, think of dog racing and racing dogs and huskies, they have a very specific picture in their mind, and it's not what we have up here for dog racing. I think the blue-eyed, fluffy husky. And that's not an Alaska Husky. Can you describe a little bit like what Alaska Husky dog looks like compared to that?
Right. We call them Alaskan Huskies. And I'm sure most people are familiar with the Siberian Husky, which are beautiful dogs. And they do pull and they do perform. I'd say the major difference between the two is that a Siberian Husky, which is a very old breed of dog, will only give you about 80% of their capability, because they have that survival mode in them, that if there's a storm, if there's a shortage of food, that I can still go that extra distance, versus an Alaskan Husky gives you 110% all the time, every time. So you really have to rein that in and make sure that, they don't overdo it. So we really have to keep an eye on them for that. But yeah, our dogs in our yard, there's so many different looking ones, and they all have a different bloodline. So if you might walk into our yard in particular, we don't have a bloodline. We don't do a lot of breeding. So we get, we've got a dog from Wade Mars or Dean Osmar, Nick Pettit, the Reddingtons. And you can almost look in the yard and be like, those ones look alike. And I'm like, yes, because they, are somewhat related, and it doesn't look anything like this one because they're not related. So right. We also call the Siberians Hollywood Huskies because that's the image that everybody has in their sled.
Yeah.
In their head.
Yeah.
And the dogs that are the breeds that are mixed there's different kinds of hounds. There's, I've heard of people, this is long time mixing things of Salukis or Brittany's or Border Collies or German Shepherds. There's been accidental lab mixed in there and that kind of thing, but German Short-haired Pointer, Anatolian Shepherd. So a huge mix of things and that kind of thing. And what it's come to now, it's just like mushers trying to breed their best dogs with their best dogs to get more amazing dogs. So that's why they are all different sizes and colors and builds and things. So we have dogs that are 45 pounds. We have dogs that are 75 pounds. It's just kind of what happens.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. I had a friend move up here and say she was looking at getting a dog from a rescue, and that it, that it was described as part husky. And I knew right away, she's thinking Siberian husky. Right. And I'm like, ooh, like in Alaska, does not mean what you think it means.
Yeah.
So she's got to know what you're about to get into. One, any dog that's in a shelter that's not a purebred is going to be part husky. That's just how it goes. So that's how it goes. Okay. So we did have a listener question before we sat down to record this today, asking what your dogs eat. And you mentioned that they eat better than you do. So what do your dogs eat?
They eat a lot of raw meat. They eat king salmon, beef, chicken, horse, tripe, beaver, lamb, bellies, wide variety of raw meats with a high quality commercial kibble. And this isn't the kind of kibble that you feed your pet dog because its fat and protein content are like 35-22, and a handful of this would probably get your Labrador overweight in a couple weeks. So it's really high fat and calories.
Yeah.
And we cook for them. So, it's when we're out on the trail, we have a cooker, we're melting snow, we're heating water and cooking a meal for them. So it's always take care of them before we take care of ourselves. And that's how it should be. And the raw meat that they eat, we cut in specific shapes of snacks based on what we need to use the snacks for. And also sometimes the dogs enjoy just a different shape of a snack. And it's funny. It's like when you have a pet dog and you spill a bowl of popcorn or dry cereal, right away, they're over there picking it up. And the faster you're saying, no, the more they're intensely going after it. So sometimes we cut our snacks up into, we call them French fries. So that's about the size they are. So you can kind of spill that on the ground. And when they're running with another dog, it's almost that competition of eating it faster than the other one that it gets their appetite and them just without even thinking about it. Well, you're really into that, those salmon fries. Me too. And then they really eat well. So it's almost like trying to figure out the best way to feed them as well as what they like to eat.
That's so great. That's such a great visualization. Thank you for that. Okay. So now, last question about like specific to the art and science of dog racing. Can you describe the Iditarod for us? I know everyone's heard of it. What is it? Describe it.
Iditarod is a 1,049-mile sled dog race across Alaska that starts in Willow and ends in Nome. The actual mileage is around 952,000, give or take, just because there's little altercations along the routes that we do, but they call it 1,049 miles to honor Alaska is the 49th state. And we do take the same route every year with the exception of we have a northern and a southern. Once we get about a third through the race, when we get to the checkpoint of over, we either go north or south and then reconnect on the trail in Caltag and then continue on to Nome. And like we said, it takes us it'll take the winner like at the fastest 8 days and some change, or 9 days. And it'll take the teams that are coming into the end, at the end, it'll take them 12 to 14 days. And there's no outside assistance, but there are veterinarians and race marshals along every checkpoint. 2 weeks before the race start, or almost 3 weeks before the race start, we send out almost 2,000 pounds worth of supplies that is distributed along the checkpoint. So we have access to our dog food and anything that we think we need along the trail. So we're not carrying our supplies along the way. We're not hunting and trapping animals along the way to survive. Everything is strategically planned out of how long you hope to stay where, what you hope to feed at what spot, and that kind of thing. So it's definitely a lot of strategy involved in it.
Yeah. And you're racing this year?
Yes, we both are.
So when people are listening to this podcast, it will be right before the race, which starts on what date?
It's always the first weekend in March, and the ceremonial start is March 6th. I think that's a Saturday. And then the actual race start is March 7th.
Got it. So just for everyone else's knowledge, ceremonial start, they pretend to start.
Right.
And then they relocate and start again.
It's basically a parade through Anchorage on Saturday.
Yeah. But I just, when we moved here, I thought that was so funny. It's like, okay, we're not starting. Just kidding. Just get really into it and have to drive really far and then start again. It's fine. Okay. And I lied. I have one more question about like specific to dog racing, and like the how-tos. Racing, just the Iditarod, I read on your website, costs like, well into 20 grand, per musher. So, but that doesn't cover like the cost of taking care of these dogs. I just want to give people a picture of the investment that this is, and the, just like the love that must follow that, and the need for sponsors and all of that stuff. So what is the cost of taking care of these dogs through the year?
Yeah, the dogs, whether you race Iditarod or not, having sled dogs is expensive. The kibble we feed is between $50 and $70 a bag
for 40 pounds.
For 40 pounds, and we feed like a bag a day. So that's just the kibble, and then we also feed a lot of meat, like Kristy said, and we'll feed around 50 pounds of meat a day. And then when you're racing and training, that goes up because your miles are going further and they need to eat more. And then you're adding supplements and things because they're athletes and they need supplemental nutritions and things. So then that adds on. So I think the largest cost of having the dogs, and when you do perform with them and race, is the food.
Yeah.
Right. And then there's miscellaneous and continuing vet bills. I mean, the rabies that they need renewed, they get annual, booster shots, just like a pet does. They eat supplements that we put in their food because they're working athletes. So it's all very expensive. And we kind of figured out roughly, it's about $1,250 per dog per year to, keep them racing form and also to compete in the races.
Yeah.
So Kristy and I, we our whole winters and the fall and the early spring is 100% dedicated to the dogs. So we do have a little part-time work we do for a neighbor, which is just helping him take care of his sled dogs when he's working. But our whole summer is like, work your butt off so you can do this in the wintertime. And we couldn't do it at the level we do it at without our sponsors. So they're a huge part of our team. And we try to save money where we can. I mean, we harvest fish and get fish from the hatcheries when they're done with them. And we process livestock ourselves, and we take donations of people's freezer burnt salmon or whatever. So we try to do the best we can to cut costs, but ultimately what the dogs need, they will get it. They will get it, whatever it takes.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure some folks in the lower 48 are like, how could you possibly have freezer burnt salmon? But you eat that right away.
Right.
It's a thing, guys. It happens up here.
Yeah.
It totally happens up here. Oh my goodness. Hey humans, did you know you can officially join the Humans Outside 365 Challenge and score some really cool and exclusive challenge swag, including a finisher medal and a decal on humansoutside.com/challenge? You'll also get an outdoor challenge guide written by me for you, an exclusive challenge tracker, and insider info all year long. You don't want to be left out of this. There is never a wrong time to join the Humans Outside 365 Challenge. So get going. Join it today. Go to humansoutside.com/challenge to learn more now. Now, back to the show. Now that we have the good, like all of the basics of mushing, which I really appreciate sharing that stuff and, so informative. I want to talk about getting outside, the good stuff here. Okay. So what is the experience of mushing and the connection to nature that comes as you slide, if you will, over the snow? How does that feel?
I think Lance Mackey said it the best when he said, it's as close to a magic carpet ride as you're going to get. When you pull the snow hook, which is our anchor that keeps them stopped, all the chaos goes away and it's quiet. It's peaceful. The dogs quit barking because they get what they want. They like relentless forward progress. So when you pull that hook and they get to travel forward as a unit, and that includes you, that's what we all want to do. So there's a quiet glide of the runners on the snow. You can hear a little puffing from the dogs, maybe a jingle from a collar, maybe some footsteps depending on the snow conditions, but it's a very, very quiet sport. Yeah. Super peaceful. You've got the cool wind on your face from the dogs. We're traveling anywhere from like 8 to 12 miles an hour. And just the things you'll be able to go and see with them, and night and day too. I mean, we're out there with the dogs traveling at night. Everybody else, a lot of people are in bed at 2 a.m. But here you are traveling with their dog team, in the wilderness of Alaska, and with just the things you experience with them, with the weather and trail things. It's never the same. Even though you could take out the same 12 dogs and go down the same trail, it's going to be a different experience every time. And you're so connected to nature, I feel, because it's a very organic, ancient way of traveling. And you see things like, well, why didn't you drive to said location? You can drive to Willow. Why mush a dog team there? It's 50 miles through the woods to get to Willow. You can drive there in 25 minutes. When you're moving at 8 to 12 miles an hour, you really absorb your entire surroundings. You're moving so much more slowly. And to do that with the dogs is just a really beautiful connection.
I love that. I love that description. I'm sort of chuckling because you both are also ultra runners, right? You run ridiculously far.
Kristy does that more than I do.
Okay.
Yeah. I've just been the pacer at a couple of things and there to cheer on that kind of stuff. But I enjoy outdoor endurance type things as well. But Kristy's ultra runner.
So I'm also a runner. And you hear that in the running community too. Like, why would you run there if you could drive?
Yeah.
And that's just, it's like, well, I mean, if you drive, you miss all that stuff. Just exactly what you're describing, I'm getting ready for hopefully to run the Resurrection Pass 100 in August. And I was sort of convinced by the compelling runner logic to do that instead of the 50, because somebody pointed out that logistically it just made more sense, because if you do the 50, then you're at the end and you don't have your car and you have to figure out how to get back. And only runners would think that having to figure out how to get a ride is a pretty good reason to run a 50 extra mile. Everyone else would be like, that's stupid. But I was like, good point.
Yeah. So, no, I'm just going to run back. I don't want to try to find a ride. And
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's fine.
Yeah, well, that's awesome.
But with that in mind, I'm wondering if you consider mushing to be an extreme sport because, well, you didn't mention how cold it is out there when you're in the middle of nowhere in January, February, March. What's the temperature like?
The coldest ambient temperature we've ever seen was 65 below.
Okay, so that's a little chilly.
Yeah,
so
it's just Alaskan winters can be really odd. I think it was 2015. Yeah, 2015 was a year that they moved the start to Fairbanks because of lack of snow, believe it or not.
Mm-hmm.
And when we did the ceremonial start in Anchorage, it was 40 above and raining. By the time we got to the halfway point in Huslia, it was minus 65. So that was 4 days from when we started to the midway point, and it was minus 65, over 100-degree difference. And it's really amazing what we have to be prepared for. So it is very extreme. You have to be prepared for so much weather, gear breaking down, tending to 14 individual animals. Yeah. And you're self-reliant. When you're out there, it's just you. Yeah, another musher can come along and help you out, but you can't depend on that. You have to be self-reliant.
Yeah. How does your relationship with the dogs factor into how you feel about nature and the sport? You talked earlier about animals being a part of your growing up and not being able to imagine your life without the dogs. And then you talked about just this experience of being alone and hearing just nothing. How does the dog relationship factor into those things?
It's the most important part is your relationship with the dogs, because it's a relationship built on trust and respect that's constantly growing. And without that, you're not going to get where you want to go or the results that you want. And it's something we all work really hard to do together. It's funny. Sometimes when it gets really hard, you're, maybe 7 days into the race, you're tired, you're getting very little sleep, you've been in, constantly cold temperatures, you're not eating regular meals or using a bathroom, all the things that go along with being a dog musher that you're used to, but it starts to wear on you when we're competing that hard. There are times I look at the dogs and be like, man, I wish I was just pulling the sled instead of, dragging the straw bale around and, packing for the next run. And, it's just, our relationship is, like I said, trust, respect, and understanding that you can't expect to have if you don't spend that time with the dogs. And it's the little things that build those relationships. It's, the cleaning up every morning and night that we do. And it's the cutting the snacks and the feeding them. The more they see you and the more time they spend with you, the more they're willing to do things for you. And that goes into training as well. Yeah. Your understanding of each of them, they're each an individual and they have their own personalities. A lot of people like, they all have names? Of course they all have names. They all have nicknames, and I'll tell you who their grandparents are. I mean, it's like, they're all individuals and we love them, each one all so much. So, each dog, their favorite snacks, who they get along with best, their size of everything that they wear and the position on the team that they like to run in best, and their whole race history and performance abilities and that kind of thing, their strengths and weaknesses, what they're afraid of. Some of them are like, some of them are timid about crossing open water, and you have other ones that just dive right in. So it's the huge, like Kristy said, understanding of each other and them knowing you that way too, that they just can tell by the pitch of your voice or whatever, how you're feeling that day or what's going on. So just that relationship is, it's key.
Yeah. I joked earlier that I understand the middle of nowhere thing because I run, but do you think that how you guys experience nature while being out there mushing can be replicated by doing other things, maybe other than running even? Because of course a lot of people don't live where we can do this. How can someone find their inner nature connection, that you find in mushing without doing that?
Get about 3 hours of sleep a night. But our sport is so amazing. It's as peaceful as we described it. It's also hectic and scary at times. So it's like, being a runner and running an ultra marathon, like you mentioned, the resurrection, and it's like, oh, it's just that quiet, peaceful trail running. It must be just amazing. It's like, well, you throw in, pouring rain or
bear country,
a snowstorm, and then this insane decline, and all of a sudden you're this alpine skier going down a Black Diamond Hill, and that's what that experience feels like. So it's a sum of so many different experiences, and it's hard to compare it to one sport, I guess.
Yeah, but I mean, if you could just get outside and slow things down a little bit and just appreciate all the things that are around you. And that's like what Kristy had mentioned before, that mushing lets you do, is just take everything in at a little slower pace, and breathe deep outside, and just to be outside, like, any and all hours of the day and places, and to be able to have a companionship to share that with someone or something, like we do with the dogs.
And also getting to where, cars can't go. So hiking up a mountain, there's only one way to get up there. And if you hiked up, that's great. And that's a lot like with dog mushing. There's places that we go with the dogs that you can't take anything but a dog sled.
Yeah. Yeah. So from like a practical advice perspective for people who are looking for that, wherever they live right now, be it Florida with the snakes instead of the dogs. What I hear you saying is just get out, like leave behind the things that tether you to the world, and get outside, slow down, and put yourself intentionally in a situation where noticing what's around you and your natural environment and being sort of just absorbed into that is your only option.
Yeah. And I think also the most memorable outdoor experiences that you can have involve all 5 of your senses. It's what you can see and feel and smell and even taste at that time that makes something that much more memorable and exhilarating, and the journey it took to get wherever you're at. Yeah, it's like as amazing as it is to be at the top of Pioneer Peak. It's a gorgeous view, but the struggle to get up there is probably what you're going to remember the most.
Yeah, that's so true. Oh, what great advice. Okay, I can't believe we've been talking this whole time, but we're coming to the end. We've got some leftover stuff. I'm so excited to hear what you guys say to these things, because it's such a unique sport, and I'm sure there's unique stuff to go along with it. So tell me, if you guys wouldn't mind, what your favorite gear is, and maybe it's mushing specific, maybe it's not, but what's something you just love?
We talked a little bit about this last night, and we have so much stuff that we use that is not only necessary, but you like to have while you're mushing.
And it's seasonal things. Like in the fall, you have this like set of things that prepare you for 35 degrees and raining and mud or whatever. And then it graduates to your winter things. And then you graduate to your summer things. Sorry to interrupt you, Kristy,
but one thing I feel like that I use all the time is just a baseball cap, because and as a runner, this, when you're running, if you have a baseball cap on and that rain isn't hitting you in the face and you can keep your eyes open, that's really nice. So it
is nice to keep your eyes open.
Exactly. So I like to wear a baseball cap, and if it's cold, I even still wear it, and I put, a beanie over it. But that's nice if it's raining. It's nice if it's snowing, keeps the snow off your face. If the sun's out, that's nice.
Yeah, even in the wintertime, we get our 5 hours of sunlight up here. You still might want that ball cap.
Yeah, so I think that's something that I'm working outside all summer. I wear it all the time. And I think that's why in the military, it's part of your BDU uniform is, unless you're wearing a beret, but that's part of your uniform is a cap with a brim.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't mention that earlier. You guys are also Army National Guard veterans as well, from Wisconsin Army National Guard, right?
Yeah. We both joined together at the same time, and that was a fun and good experience. And it's just
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. Okay, so most essential. I mean, I know you just said that it just depends on the season, but if you had to narrow it down, I guess we could focus on like getting ready for Iditarod. What's something that is among or perhaps your most essential?
We have mandatory gear that you have to carry in the sled, and I mean it's things like it's a cooker so you can cook and melt snow for the dogs. It's a extreme cold weather sleeping bag. It's an axe, dog booties, dog food. Even though snowshoes, I've never used the snowshoes ever on a dog sled race, but you got to have them, and when you do need them, you're going to be happy you do. But yes, those are mandatory things, but I don't think about them because I've never used them. I've used my axe before. I mean, my sleeping bag, I've used it and that kind of thing. But I'd say a knife and a lighter are probably two things that you use every single day when you're out on the Iditarod.
We had a listener question in this subject vein. She wants to know what your favorite chapstick is. She says she's on the hunt for a perfect one. I mean, I've spent enough time outside in Alaska, not like you guys, but enough time to know that it does get dry and your lips do get chapped. So, so do you have something specific that you can recommend to this poor woman?
I really like one that has sunscreen in it because in March we start getting our sunlight back, and I think the sunscreen one is really something with sunscreen. It's nice to have. Otherwise, I do like the Burt's Bees one. I just think it. We've had some friends make chapsticks for us, and those are nice. But sorry, listener, that you can't get Ira Edwards chapstick. But Burt's Bees does nice, and just something with really organic, natural ingredients. Sunscreen and I don't know. Some of the best chapsticks I've gotten are the little freebies. Maybe your dentist gave it to you and it's like, wow, this one smells nice. It's nice and smooth. It doesn't have taste. It has sunscreen in it, and it's like, who makes that one? So sorry, I don't really have a good answer for that.
You're so right though, and it's and I also, on the sunscreen thing, I think people don't think about that for Alaska, that in March it would be a sunburn situation, but of course the snow really magnifies that. It's got that reflection, and now it's like a thing. So don't forget your sunscreen, guys. If you're coming up to Alaska in March. Okay, last but not least, walk us out, giving us just like a description of your favorite outdoor moment. If you were going to close your eyes and envision yourself in your favorite moment outside, where are you and what are you doing?
No, that's such a hard question to answer. Anna and I talked about this last night. Just because we are year-round lovers of the outdoors, not only with the dogs, but just like with running and cycling and skiing, and hiking, all those kind of things. But definitely like I think my favorite moments have been with the dogs. And because of and it's been on the Iditarod Trail, because there's places we'll go on the Iditarod that, like Kristy said, you can only get there by dog team or a snowmobile, but you only get to go to those places once a year. So when you leave a checkpoint like Unalakleet and you climb up above and you're up at the top of the Blueberry Hills and you're able to time it right to where the sun is coming up, it feels like you might have mushed to a different planet or something, and or I don't know. It's just the things you can see, and the fact that you got there with the dog team and you're already like a week into the race. So just, you're tired and that kind of thing. But the way that lights up and the way it feels and the things you see, nothing else can exist at that point. It's just you and your dog team at the top of that mountain overlooking the Arctic world. So that's a very special, unique experience just me and my dogs. You don't get that. And I really like night mushing, like especially with the full moon that we're getting right now, where you don't even need a headlamp. The stars are out, cool, cold night, aurora. I think minus 10 to 0 is probably the perfect temperature. And just,
that's the thing. Thank you guys for coming on the Humans Outside podcast today. It has been such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode of Humans Outside. If you've enjoyed this episode, give us a little love and leave a rating and review to make it easier for others to find the podcast too. what you say matters. It really truly does make a difference. And until next time, we'll see you out there.